Madam Chairman. Nadine is the chair of the.
I know.
So she was giving us.
Yeah, I just took over, yep. Actually, Gail Manchin was with me.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is my pleasure to introduce well, he tells me all the time that, I don't know if he brought it, but he tells me all the time he actually has a Santorum sweater vest. I've actually never seen it, but he tells me he has one, and that he helped me down in Louisiana. I will tell you, because I campaigned in 2012. I campaigned in 30 states, so I actually did. Well, I shouldn't say I ran primaries in 30 states. I campaigned in all those states, but also a few others that I didn't quite get to. And I can say that without question, every state was, they were similar. I mean, as far as campaigning, I enjoyed states some more than others, but it was all, campaigning was sort of the same. And then there's Louisiana. and Louisiana is not like the rest of the country. I mean, I just hate to say, I don't want to say that in a negative, I say it in a positive way, actually. It's just, there's a different vibe in Louisiana when it comes to politics. And I remember going to church. I used to get frustrated because I would go to church, you go to mass, and they wouldn't never say that I was there, or maybe at the end of mass someone would say, Senator Santorum is here and going to mass with us today. In Louisiana, right during the homily, hey, Senator Santorum's here, and I know I'm not supposed to say this, but I'm voting for him. It was just different. It's like no holds barred politics in Louisiana, and so it just was fun. I ended up winning the state of Louisiana. I'm sure Mike takes credit for that.
Of course.
But it's just a great place. And Mike is, you probably see him on TV. In my opinion, he doesn't do enough TV because you are really, really good. He is really a great communicator for our conservative principles. And, look, I think the sky's the limit for this guy. I'm really excited that he's here, because I think you get to know this man, because you're going to see a lot of him in the years ahead. Mike Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you.
You consider staying whatever you feel like doing.
I'm going to stand because I'm a lot shorter than you. And I'm sweating because we're in the middle of a vote series, and I voted and then ran. So sorry. And it feels like Louisiana, and I don't even have my sweater vest on. I got described by the Boston Globe about, how many years ago was that when you ran?
2012.
Man, time flies. Anyway, I got described by the Boston Globe that year as a boyish man in a sweater vest. No kidding. And because I was wearing his campaign paraphernalia. And so I learned a very, very important lesson, Rick, that when you go to a hostile interview, you don't wear a sweater vest. So I stayed on message, and that's all they can say. I am really grateful for this organization and what y'all do, and for my friend and hero over here. And I tell him every time I see him that he has been such an inspiration to me and so many others, and I'm really grateful he's still in the fight, and that all of you are as well. I just have a couple minutes, and they said you can talk about any manner of things. Right now, I'm serving as vice chairman of the House Republicans, and we are encouraged, y'all. We're optimistic. I know it seems really dark and foreboding right now, but we think our best days are ahead of us, and we're going to have a great run in 2022. Now, unless we mess it up, which we have a special power to do. But we are working right now to unify the team, to get everybody on the same page in terms of messaging and what our plan is going to be to govern again when we get our moment. I'm convinced we're going to have a red wave and win the House. There's a bunch of reasons for that. I know y'all, I don't want to recount that for you all, because I know I'm not preaching to the choir, I'm preaching to the honored choir today, so I get that, you know all this. But I think the Senate may be in play as well, and if not, we get to the next round, and then we're going to be able to turn this thing around. And remember that it took a Carter to get a Reagan, and there's a lot of similarities there right now, and we'll see what happens. It's going to be exciting. I'm not deterred in any way. I'm actually pretty fired up right now, because I believe, I'm convinced, and I know you are, God's not done with America just yet. That's right. And as Reagan said, we're the last best hope of man on the earth. And so we have to fight for this, and I think we're going to have a good run coming up. So we just got to hold the line right now, keeping the filibuster is a big part of that, and all the other elements that I know y'all are discussing this week. But let me talk about something even more fundamental than that in the 5 or 6 minutes I have with you. Because one of the reasons I'm excited about where we're going is that I believe we're in the process right now of doing kind of in some ways, sort of a reset in terms of our conservative worldview and our philosophy and what we stand for and what we're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to preserve, which is what conservatism is, really. And I'll just give you a quick anecdote on why I'm optimistic and encouraged about this right now. So in the last Congress, I chaired the Republican Study Committee, and that's the largest caucus of conservatives in the House, and we had 148 members. Everybody who self-describes as a conservative is in this group. It's the policy shop. They call it the intellectual arsenal of conservatism in the House. And it was founded in 73, and it's had a great run ever since. Mike Pence was a former chair, and Steve Scalise was, and other notables. So they gave it to the ragtag kid from Louisiana to run. And so when I ran again for chair, I was recruited by my colleagues to do it. And I was running against Tom McClintock of California. Anybody from California? I didn't think so. There's no conservatives left there. Except for Tom.
You're on Zoom, so there might be.
Yes, I love California. No, there's some great people in a few areas, a few pockets. So McClintock is somebody that I've looked up for a long time. He's been in Congress, a quarter century, and I felt bad running against him because I thought I would vote for Tom and carry his bag anywhere, right? But I stood in front of our colleagues, and we had all 148 of us in an auditorium. This is in the fall of 2018, and we're planning for the next Congress. We didn't know what situation we'd be in after that election cycle, but we weren't feeling great about it. But I said, look, if we're in the majority or the minority, we need to do something very simple. And this is what it boils down to me, guys. I'm telling you, my colleagues, my fellow colleagues in the House, I'd only been in for 2 years at that point. I said, when I'm going back home to town halls right now, things have been scrambled a bit. We're in the first 2 years of the Trump administration here, and we're having a great run. But a lot of the kind of the foundational things of the Republic are being shifted right now, and of our philosophy as well. And when I'm amongst big groups of conservatives back home, I'm increasingly concerned that many of them cannot articulate anymore what it is we actually believe. Like, what is conservatism, right? Because there are different competing ideas, and the philosophy is moving around and changing. And I just believe it's really, really important for us as elected representatives of all these folks to be able to articulate very simply what we believe. 1 Peter 3:15, always be prepared to give an answer for the hope that you have, right? So we're evangelists for the truth, the ultimate truth, right? But we also have to be kind of evangelists, to use an analogy, a metaphor, for our philosophy right now. And so I told all my colleagues, I said, look, guys, if you were in an elevator tonight, and you were downtown and you're going to the 22nd floor, you had a millennial in the elevator with you, and they're an AOC devotee, and you got less than 3 minutes to convince them why that philosophy is wrong and why ours is right, what would you say? I mean, what does it boil down to? Because most conservatives back home will tell me they're pro-life and they're against taxes and they like guns, and and that's okay. But after a few of those bullet points, right, it gets pretty sparse. So I said, I'm going to suggest to you, if you elect me as chairman of RSC, we're going to break this thing back down to the foundations. We're going to go back to the fundamental principles that don't change. By the way, remember when Ronald Reagan gave his famous farewell address, he said of all the habits, that was Washington. Washington said of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion, and morality, the indispensable supports. Well, Reagan carried that forward. And when he gave his farewell address, he said, they call me the great communicator, but it really wasn't that. I was just communicating great things. And they're the same great things that have guided the nation since Washington's time, since the founding. And I told my colleagues, I said, the great things don't change. What are they, right? So if you had to boil down a library full of conservative thought, the Republican Party platform, like the writings of the founders, everything that we espouse, all conservative philosophy and thought, if you had to put it onto one half page, what would it look like? What would it say? And so I would suggest to you, I'm going to call it the 7 core principles of conservatism. Remember, I'm talking to all the House members. I said, if you make me the chairman, this is what we're going to do. We're going to base everything on these core principles. It's called individual freedom, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, and human dignity. Now, of course, under each of those, there are subcategories. Under human dignity, for example, is the sanctity of every human life. But we believe and espouse those things not because the Republican values and principles, although they happen to be right now, more fundamental than that, they're quintessential American values, and they have been since the founding. So we're going to do well by doubling down on those principles. You want to pass it?
She did.
I gave it to you. So, and so I passed out this thing right here to all the members, and I said, look, give me the chairmanship, and this is what we're going to do. Every policy that we develop for the next 2 years is going to be grounded in one of these principles. Every argument that our members are going to make on the floor is going to be grounded in one of these principles. Everything we say or do or vote for or whatever, it has to be traced back to foundational principles so that we don't lose them. Y'all, I'm from Louisiana, so everything is a football or a hurricane metaphor. And so I used the hurricane metaphor, and I said, when you're in big choppy seas and rough uncharted waters, it's easy to lose sight of the horizon, and we have to remember where the fixed points are. These are them, and if I'm chairman, this is what we're going to do. So that resonated, and people got on board with that, and that's what we did for 2 years. We wound up publishing at the end of the last Congress over 400 pages of policy. We call it the Conservative Playbook for a Republican-led majority. We know what we're going to do against football, okay? And when we take the majority back, day one, we're going to run. We're going to do like a revision of like the Contract with America kind of thing, and I can't unfurl all that yet, but this stuff's going on right now. And our members are going to be out in the districts talking about these issues. We got solutions, conservative solutions, for every challenge facing the country. We know what we're for and where we want to take the country, and it's grounded in these principles that don't change. And so that's why we're excited, that's why we're enthusiastic. By the way, this is such a simple thing, and I told the members, I said, look, I have no pride of authorship about this, modify it if you will, maybe yours are the top 9 principles or whatever, but I'm saying everybody needs to boil this down and be ready to articulate it, and then go home to your town halls and your Republican women's groups and all the, everybody, our churches, and have people be conversant about this again, because we have to be able to do it. We have taken for granted. We were mocking them for doing community organizing and all that for a long time. It was very effective. They raised up a whole generation of millennials and people, and of course they're being indoctrinated in the public school systems and all that. That's what we're competing against. So we have to be able to present these truths in plain language and win people over. And I think we can, and I think at the end of the day, the fact that this team is going so far left right now, the public polling, as you know, is already coming back to us. We're still a center-right country, though. We may not all wear sweater vests with Santorum on, but we're close. We're close. And we got to keep fighting. And so, yes, and let me shut up. You get a question? Go ahead.
I'm just curious about what you're going to do when you win back the House majority. What are the top 3 things you're going to do?
So today, McCarthy is our leader, right? And so he's rolled out task forces. What we did in RSC, the way we produced all this is we separated everybody. We had 7 task forces, and we populated them with people who have a real passion, energy, expertise in those areas. And what we did over those 2 years is about every 3 months we rolled out another publication of a task force. So we had healthcare, the American Worker Task Force, national security, all the things we're concerned about. And at the end, we consolidated it all together in this big thing. So it worked so well, we had 148 of the 199 Republicans working on it. McCarthy said, gee, we ought to do that conference-wide. Oh, yeah, Eureka. So we are. So today, in fact, about an hour and a half ago, McCarthy rolled out the conference task forces, and you'll see a lot of similarities in what we did, and they're going to begin with that work product. So to ask me what my top 3
sounds like you're dodging.
I'm not dodging, but I don't want to get out in front of my leader and tell you what they are. I think I know what they are, and I'm going to try to draft.
What would you do?
Well, I would lead, I think right now, the biggest issues on the hearts and minds of people is inflation, the border, and probably, I'm going to tell you the life issue, because I think that with the Supreme Court teeing up the Mississippi case, this is going to come up. We've seen polling, we're going to run on what we used to call social issues. Those are American issues. These are American values.
Yes.
We're conservatives, but it just so happens the conservative cause is the American cause right now. It's these core principles, right? And so we're going to, when you go into an election cycle, you take longitudinal polls out a few months and you figure out which ones are resonating the most, and you run on that because it's reality, right? But whatever the top 3 issues are that we're going to run on, it's difficult to determine right now what that's going to look like a year from now, right? But whatever those issues are, we have a whole subset of policies that are ready to go on day one, and they're already assigned to authors. We already have legislative text for a lot of this stuff, and we're going to just come out of the blocks. And if we have a sizable majority, which I think we're going to have, you're going to see a lot of very exciting things. Okay, and if I tell you right now, since we're on video and everybody's watching from California, what the top 3 priorities are, then I'll get in trouble, because I am in elected leadership and I'm not supposed to jump out in front. That's just the way we do it. But I'm telling you, in the next couple of weeks and probably the next 3 months, you'll see that crystallize, and it won't be Mike Johnson's version of it. It'll be the whole conference. So.
Well, I don't want to monopolize you, but life is very important to me, and President Trump he delivered us a SCOTUS that I believe is going to give us a ban on abortion sometime in my lifetime, and I'm just, what can Congress do to?
So I've been working in that arena.
Until that happens.
I've been in that arena since the day I got out of law school, literally for almost 25 years. I was a pro-life litigator. I did religious liberty defense, pro-life defense in the courts, right? So it's been near and dear to my heart. I've known Amy Coney Barrett since high school. We go way, way back. And I was one of the guys pushing Trump really, really hard to put her on the court. And I think that Amy would author the opinion. I do. I think she'd be willing to do it. And I think we're going to have at least 5 of those, if not all 6 of the conservatives that will help us. If we overturn Roe, which I think it's imminent, I really do, because I think if you look at it from the originalist perspective, which all of them are now espousing, most of them are espousing,
It's indefensible.
it's indefensible, and it goes back to the states. And then we have the real battle, right? Because states like Louisiana, we have it in our state constitution that if the decision is to return to the states, day one, we're a 100% pro-life state. And there's 10 or 11 other states, I think, at last count, that have similar provisions either in statute or their state constitution. They've already amended it. We just amended our constitution last year. We've had it in statutes for like 12 or 13 years. Anyway, there are also, though, frighteningly, some states, and you can guess which states they are, some of them friends may be watching from those states, that they're going to go the opposite end. And they're going to go full, late term, all-out abortion on demand. And you're going to have a division in the country on that day. And in that season, you're literally going to have pro-life and pro-death states. And then you talk about a division in the country. But I'm optimistic to believe that people will go and follow where life flourishes, right? And so I think that it could be a real opportunity for the future.
Thank you.
I'm so glad to hear you're going to do perhaps a Newt Gingrich-style listing of why we should vote on the congressional steps, maybe. But I think it seems to me the left has been beating us over the head for years, and they're not liberals anymore. They're progressives. If you take the word progressive and take it to its natural course, what they preach is regressive. It doesn't work anywhere. We're progressive.
Right.
And it just seems like they've been beating us in the sense of under the heading of marketing in so many ways. And I even watch the conservative channels on TV, and it's hard to find them anymore, but they even say the progressives, they're giving them the credit for being progressives. They're not. Neither are they the Democratic Party. They're the Democrat Party. Right. We're the Democratic Party of the two, but those things bother me sometimes.
You're right, and labels and language matter, and there's some of our closest friends, leaders in the conservative movement, are meeting regularly right now trying to determine whether we need to change our branding from conservative to something else. Is it just American? Is it like, I was in a brainstorming session on this 3 days ago with names that y'all know, like people at the top of the movement that lead all these organizations that you all know and support and pray for. Because they were so successful in ditching the liberal and taking on progressive, and then of course they have the help of the mainstream media that gives them lift, and that's our challenge, is we're always working uphill. But the language matters. We just call it Marxist now. That's the origin of all of it. And Marxist and socialist, and there's a rising tide of that. One of the most unfortunate trends, I believe, and I think I talked to Rick about this at a dinner we had the other night. The unfortunate trend we see in Congress right now is that people are running for Congress and being elected, coming to Capitol Hill, not with the objective of being real legislators, or being true to any particular philosophy of government or worldview for that matter. They just want to be reality TV stars. And this seems to be an easy means to that, to be famous. And so it's a very dangerous trend in the constitutional republic that's founded on the principles that we all believe in. And it's not just on one side, it's both sides, frankly, okay? And then bad behavior begets other bad behavior because it's rewarded on social media, you get more followers and more funding, and so now there's a contest amongst people to say the more outrageous thing than the person before them so that they can get booked on the interviews and do all that. So I don't know how we close the door on that Pandora's box, but there's a dwindling number of grown-ups on the Hill who actually understand the necessity of governing the country, and that's a trend that we've got to work on and pray about, among other things. So, yes, sir.
Just to follow up on the Dobbs issue.
Yes.
As you said, Roe v. Wade is overturned, it goes back to the states, and states have very, very divergent views of how they're going to deal with this. The leftists said that Congress, they want to codify Roe v. Wade if that happens. Congressional Republicans, conservatives talked at all about how they would approach sort of a national legislation on this if you get the House back in the presidency.
Well, frankly, there hasn't been any broad-scale discussion on that.
Yeah.
Many of us in the pro-life caucus talk about this stuff all the time, right? Mm-hmm. The battle should be, part of our argument against Roe was that it should never have been, they shouldn't have taken it away from the states because it was originally the purview of the states. So I am on record a bunch of times railing against Roe for that. And so if I come out now and say I want to federalize it, right? And that's the trend right now is the Democrats want to federalize everything, from our elections to, everything. On the other hand, there are some issues that are so transcendent that we may come back to that as the ultimate remedy. And I'm not ruling it out. I'm just saying, as an old constitutional law nerd, I've got to reconcile and figure out how to do that. But look, I think we can win the battle on the ground in most of the states. I really do. Because once people see that stark contrast and they see what it means, I think that, and as medical technology continues to develop, and we can see inside the womb, and we know that young babies can feel pain in the womb and all that, it's going to be really, really hard to defend that position. And people are going to be seen for what they are, and I think that we can ultimately win that argument. I know we got another vote. Did you vote before you came?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Look, I'm just the warm-up bat. but I want to say he's a rock star. We love having him in Congress, and you're going to love to hear from him. And I'm going to go vote, but I want to say, again, seriously, and I mean this, there are very few people that inspire me, because I get really cynical up here, y'all, and doing what we do. But he is one of the good guys. He always has been. He's been consistent, and it has been such an inspiration for me, man. Really, I'm going to get all teared up here. I'm going to stop talking, but thank you.
Thank you.
Seriously, and thank you.